Imagine descending into the depths of the ocean for what seems like a routine task, relying on your experience and your teammates. Suddenly, an imperceptible mistake unleashes an unstoppable force, turning your sanctuary into a death trap. This is how one of the most chilling tragedies in modern diving history began: the Paria Accident. What started as a controlled operation ended with 5 men trapped inside an underwater pipeline, pushed to the very limits of their endurance as they fought for air and their lives. What happened in those dark tunnels was captured on a GoPro camera, revealing a horror the world will never forget. What went wrong? Could it have been prevented? And, most importantly, what secrets lie hidden in the depths of Paria? Get ready for a tale of bravery, negligence, and desperation that will leave you breathless. Dragged violently into the depths of the ocean, 5 brave men found themselves trapped in a deadly dance with an underwater pipeline. In that hellish vortex, only one would emerge to recount the horror they endured. The GoPro camera, a silent witness to the tragedy, captured the precise moment of disaster. What unfolds in that footage will chill your blood. On February 25th, 2022, at the Berks platform in Pointe-à-Pierre, LMSS workers Faisal Kurban, Qasim Ali Jr., Ridzi Nagasar, Yusuf Henry, and Christopher Boudram were tasked with maintaining an inactive pipeline. The pipeline belonged to Paria Fuel Company, a state-owned oil company in Trinidad and Tobago. The pipeline in question was a 76-centimeter U-shaped pipe running along the seabed, designed to transport oil from Berks 6, where ships offload crude, to Berks 5, the refinery. Although there were some risks, the 5-member dive team was well prepared and consisted of experienced divers. The team set up an air tube within a diving bell, a unique 2.4-meter cube-shaped habitat. This diving structure provided a dry workspace for the LMSS maintenance team. The cube-shaped structure was installed over the Berks 6 pipeline to displace the water within the work area. The diving bell created a pressurized air pocket that expelled seawater, creating a safe environment for the crew to work. Once ready, this workspace allowed the crew to remove their diving equipment and use their tools safely for essential maintenance. Without a doubt, they had completed this procedure hundreds of times. As the 5 veteran divers carried out their duties, everything went as usual, until it didn't. The company had installed an inflatable plug 2 weeks prior to protect the oil within the pipeline and prevent contamination. Although the line was not in service at the time, it could be activated when necessary. The industry refers to such pipelines as dead legs, and they are not without risks. While this was a standard procedure, it required intense planning, thorough risk assessments, and close monitoring. Preparing for maintenance tasks like this could take days, if not longer. Unfortunately, this likely indicated that the oil company was unwilling to invest the time needed for a safe operation. But, like most employees, the 5 divers simply followed orders. The divers descended to their workspace, unaware of what was awaiting them. It turned out that inflatable plugs like this are pressurized, holding high-pressure air within the diving bell and low-pressure air inside the pipeline itself. These conditions created the perfect formula for disaster. When Ali Jr. handed a wrench to his crewmates inside the diving bell, they began loosening the valve to release the plug. The 5 divers had not been warned. The moment the plug was loosened, the difference in pressure transformed the pipeline's interior into a relentless vortex, ruthlessly sucking in air, water, people, and equipment into its depths. The suction force was overpowering, and a torrent of water surged into the diving bell, turning their sanctuary into a death trap. The sudden influx of water and the pressure differential unleashed a force that dragged the men and their tools into the narrow pipeline. In the blink of an eye, they found themselves violently propelled through a whirlpool of water and oil for 90 agonizing seconds, gasping for air. Then it stopped. They regrouped and assessed their positions within the pipeline, realizing the gravity of their situation. The violent tornado of water, air, and oil had left them stranded somewhere along the line, where an air pocket allowed them to breathe. Their fight for survival had only just begun. The men were trapped inside a 365-meter-long oil pipeline, disoriented, injured, and utterly terrified. Amid the chaos and fear, the men tried to communicate and keep each other's spirits up. However, the reality of their situation crushed any hope of survival. The GoPro, which had accompanied them during the dive, recorded every second of their ordeal, capturing the terror and sounds of their struggle as they fought for their lives. Initially, Chris believed they had been pulled headfirst through the pipeline and would need to crawl backward to exit. However, Qasim, Yusuf, and Faisal were convinced they had entered feet first, and Chris trusted the majority's judgment. As the least injured diver, Chris placed his feet on Qasim's shoulders, instructing Qasim to gather the rest of the group and Faisal to push from the back. United like a chain with Chris leading, they began their attempt to escape the pipeline. Pushing through thick, slippery oil residues in complete darkness was unbearable. They dealt with broken bones, burning eyes, throat irritation, and extreme discomfort. Progress was agonizingly slow, and the end seemed nowhere in sight. The men continued praying and moving as best they could. Eventually, they encountered 2 oxygen tanks with regulators still attached. Chris informed the men that breathing the air inside the pipeline could cause delirium and nausea. He advised them to take small sips of air from the tanks at intervals to maintain clean oxygen in their systems. Although they found oxygen tanks, water levels continued rising as they moved forward. Christopher noticed some group members were struggling to breathe and had sustained severe injuries. Others were trapped and unable to move. He decided to investigate how far the water would rise if they continued. As he advanced, Chris made a horrifying discovery. The next segment of the pipeline was completely underwater, and with only 2 oxygen tanks for 5 people, it was unsafe to proceed. Knowing this, Chris faced the hardest decision of his life. He had to continue alone to get help for everyone else. After explaining the situation, the group agreed it was their only chance, giving Chris one of the oxygen tanks. Chris promised to get help and return for them before setting off. Still unsure if he was heading in the right direction, and aware of how little air remained in his tank, Chris swam through the submerged section with the tank in front of him, hoping to find another air pocket soon. The entire pipeline had flooded sections and occasional air pockets. After struggling to push through underwater, he realized his oxygen was running low based on the air quality. With his diving instincts in full gear, he took the last breath from his tank. As if fate intervened, his tank struck another metallic object ahead. It was another oxygen tank. Desperately, he searched for its regulator in the total darkness. After fumbling, he finally found it. However, the regulator had no mouthpiece, so he shoved the entire mechanism into his mouth. Covered in oily sludge, he managed to breathe a sigh of relief from the tank. Chris knew he couldn't stop and continued with all his strength, unsure how much longer he could survive. After what felt like hours, he finally reached the top of the pipeline and emerged to safety. Although he survived the ordeal, his nightmare was far from over. The aftermath of the incident revealed negligence, mismanagement, and the loss of 4 lives. This tragedy, marked by courage, despair, and survival, will forever remain a haunting reminder of the risks these divers faced daily. As we reach the end of this harrowing story, we are left with questions that demand answers. Who is responsible for this tragedy? Could the lives of those brave divers have been saved? And what lessons can we, as a society, learn from the Paria accident to ensure this never happens again? The investigation into the incident revealed a disturbing pattern of negligence, poor decision-making, and lack of preparedness from those in charge. The Paria Fuel Trading Company failed in its duty to protect its workers, ignoring critical safety measures and allowing a dangerous operation to proceed without adequate planning. Worse still, when disaster struck, the company prioritized avoiding further risks over initiating a rescue mission that could have saved lives. Decisions made during those crucial hours sealed the fate of 4 men who remained trapped, injured, and alive, waiting for help that never came. But the responsibility doesn't rest solely on one entity. The contractors, land and marine construction services, also played a role in this tragedy. Their failure to anticipate the dangers posed by differential pressure within the pipeline, known as Delta P, proved fatal. This was not an unknown risk, yet the safeguards and protocols necessary to prevent such a disaster were absent. The aftermath of this catastrophe has forced the industry to confront its shortcomings. It has highlighted the need for more stringent safety regulations, better training, and a culture where human lives take precedence over profit margins. The tragedy of Paria serves as a grim reminder that cutting corners in safety comes at an unthinkable cost. Yet, there's a larger lesson here for all of us. The Paria accident is not just about technical failures or corporate negligence. It's a story about accountability, about the responsibility we have to those who risk their lives every day to perform dangerous but essential work. It's about making sure that every decision, every protocol, and every action taken considers the value of human life above all else. The brave divers of Paria were fathers, sons, and friends. Their lives mattered, and their deaths should not be in vain. The lessons learned from this tragedy must echo across industries, forcing companies to reevaluate their priorities and commit to creating safer environments for workers. And for the rest of us, let this story serve as a stark reminder of the human cost of negligence. It's up to us to demand accountability, to push for change, and to honor the memory of those who paid the ultimate price. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the Paria accident. Let's ensure that their story is never forgotten, and that their sacrifice leads to a future where no one else has to endure such a tragedy. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that explore the depths of human courage, resilience, and, sometimes, failure. Until next time, stay safe and vigilant.